ahead of the game.
Hi, I'm Kelsa Dickey, the CEO of the Financial Coach Academy and my financial coaching business, Fiscal Fitness Phoenix. My coaching journey began more than a decade ago with me helping people for free from my dining room table. What was once a little business of mine has grown into a 7-figure company that employs a team of people. My goal is simple, to help you fall more and more in love with financial coaching. I believe financial coaching is the most rewarding way to make a living. If you are an aspiring financial coach or have been coaching for years, I'm here to help you create a business you love that gets your clients massive results. Let's get to it. Hey, financial coach. I am excited to kick off episode 19, how to be a skilled and sought after financial coach. I have to tell you, if you are listening to this episode on a podcast and not on YouTube, you are totally missing out, because if you were to see me on YouTube, I am wearing my sequin bomber jacket today. And the reason I'm doing that is actually, it's related to the coaching model that we have been talking about in the prior 2 episodes. And the reason is because I've had this jacket for a while, and I kept telling myself that I needed a reason to wear it, that I needed a reason to get dressed up, right? So that is the thought that I was having, and that led to me never wearing this jacket. Or I wore it one time, and then I never wore it again. I wore it at the symposium that we used to host, a big conference that we hosted for financial coaches back in the day. And I was thinking that I needed a special reason to wear it. And so that was the thought that I was having. Okay, so if we were to apply the model that we've been talking about over the last couple of episodes, that thought, I need a special reason to wear this amazing sequin bomber jacket that I look amazing in, okay, then of course that led to me not wearing it, right? And then I had this thought of like, I don't need a special reason to wear this jacket. I shifted that thought, right? And then I thought, I can make up what's considered special, right? I can have a reason to wear it that I think is special, and any day of the week can be special, right? Any day that I live can be considered special to me. That is the thought that I changed it to. And here we are. I am wearing my sequin bomber jacket. And we actually do have something special. I'm super excited. So this episode is dropping on March 23rd. And in 2 days, on March 25th, I will be celebrating my 15th anniversary as a financial coach. My financial coaching anniversary. I officially launched my business on March 25th, 2008. This episode is dropping on March 23rd. So I am celebrating. It is a special day. Not that I need one to wear this amazing jacket, but I just think back on my journey so fondly. And not because it went perfectly. In fact, there were so many things that I did wrong and said wrong and tried wrong, and ways that I wasted money as an entrepreneur because I tried things that didn't work, and all sorts of things. And yet I look back on every one of those moments and I think they made me who I am today. I'm smarter because of them. I'm wiser because of them. So much of that journey has given me the opportunity to help all of you on your journey, wherever you're at on that path. And it just makes me feel really proud. I have such fondness when I look back on the past 15 years. When I first started, I never imagined it would become what it is. I know when I first started, I was calling myself a financial coach, wasn't really doing coaching, which I talked about in the last couple of episodes. We're going to dive in a little bit more today as well. I didn't really feel like a financial coach, honestly. Like, it really didn't feel like a big part of who I was. And now it is a massive part of who I am. It is such a big part of my identity. I don't know where I would be without financial coaching today, right? It is my business. It's my livelihood. It's my husband's business as well. The team of people that I have make me so happy every single day. Our clients bring me such joy. It has impacted my life in so many beautiful ways, and it is absolutely a journey we're celebrating. And so it's a journey that is deserving of a sequin bomber jacket. That's what I think. So let's dive into today's episode, Becoming a Skilled and Sought After Financial Coach. Before we do this, I do want to remind you, the Financial Coaching Toolkit is going to be released pretty soon here by the end of the month. That is our target. I hope I'm not overpromising here. I'm recording these episodes about a month early. And so we are on track at the time of this recording to meet our project deadline. And so we are really excited to unveil the new Financial Coaching Toolkit. One of the things we have always done with our offerings, something I am really proud of, is that If you purchase the Financial Coaching Toolkit, the old version of it, you automatically get the upgrade. The upgrade is massive in size. It is going to be about double the size of the original toolkit. The number of concepts is doubling, and the thoroughness inside of each concept is greater. We're going way more in depth. And all of the coaches who have the old toolkit are getting the new version. And I am so excited about that. So if you are interested in really expanding and diving into your coaching skills, really figuring out how to take something that is financial, technical in nature, and adding the thought work and the emotional components to something that is financial. If that is something you want to do, highly recommend checking out the Financial Coaching Toolkit. May not be available if you go right today as you're listening to this episode. If you go right today on the website, financialcoachacademy.com. If you click on Learn in the menu bar, you may not see it or it may not be available yet. Just sit tight. It is coming soon. We are really excited. You can also hop over to financialcoachacademy.com/subscribe. Get on our email list. We will be announcing the release of it to our email first. So if you want to be the first to hear about it, make sure you subscribe and get our emails. So in this episode of the Financial Coach Academy podcast, I want to talk with you about what great financial coaching looks like and what it doesn't. Correct me if I'm wrong, coach, but I'm going to assume that you don't want to be just a mediocre coach, right? I'm willing to bet that you would like to be a skilled and sought after coach, right? The way to do that is by becoming a great coach, by focusing on the coaching side of things. And that is what we are going to explore today. This is a continuation of episodes 17 and 18, Coaching 101 and Coaching 201. If you haven't listened to either of those yet, you know what to do. Hit pause on 19, go back to 17 and 18, and come back to me here because a lot of this stuff is not going to make a whole lot of sense if you haven't listened to those episodes first. From those episodes, I just want to remind you, we are working with essentially two coaching models. The first is a framework, which is education, application, and commitment. And inside of that framework, coaching happens using the second model that we talked about, which is circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. Today, I am going to share with you 6 rules, if you will, 6 ways that you can check in with yourself to make sure that you are creating a great coaching experience for your clients. Some of these may not land if you have not listened to episode 17 and 18 first. I cannot stress that enough. So let's dive in. Rule number 1, great coaching sounds like owning what you don't know. The best quality any of us can have when it comes to money and wealth creation, me, you, and all of our clients, is curiosity. Money is a lifelong journey of learning and applying. The things that I am doing today with my money, I could never even have fathomed 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, right? People who buy their first house and then they want to buy their first investment property or their second, right? At every stage of our growth, there is more learning and more growing. And the best thing we can do is bring curiosity to the journey. Whenever a client asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, the first thing to do is admit that you don't know the answer. That's fine. Just admit it, acknowledge it. And the second thing to do is demonstrate curiosity. Here's some of the things that you could say. Ooh, I'm not sure, but I am sure that if you're wondering, other clients will be too. So I would love to learn about this right alongside you. What do you think of that? That's something you could ask the client. One of the fears that newer coaches have when they're starting out is, what will I do if I'm asked a question I don't know the answer to? The answer? You'll learn it right alongside that client, and your client will be better as a result of it because you will demonstrate the journey of learning, how to research things, how to find out things, how to go from not knowing something to knowing something and not holding yourself back just because you don't know something, right? I actually love when this happens, and I think it's a beautiful, amazing moment in the coaching journey. Rule number 2. Great coaching focuses on what's most important to the client when determining the best action to take. How do you, as a coach and financial expert, decide what is the best action for a client to take? How do you, as a coach, decide what is the best action for a client to take? It's a bit of a trick question because you don't. The client decides. Some clients might choose the cheapest route, others the fastest route. Some may choose a strategy that isn't the cheapest or the fastest, but it's the one they can live with. What I want you to do is ask often, when making this decision, which factors are most important to you? I want you to ask clients that question as often as possible. When making this decision, which factors are most important to you? The numbers are the facts and figures of the situation, right? In other words, those are the circumstances. What the client thinks of those facts and figures is what ultimately matters. Great coaching gets to the heart of that. Great coaching focuses on what a client thinks and feels over what they know and do. I'm going to say that again. Great coaching focuses on what a client thinks and feels over what they know and do. In other words, great coaching uses the coaching model that we talked about in the prior episode. So ask often, what do you think of that? How are you feeling about this idea? Okay. Here's an example that just happened for me with a client recently. One of my clients had her $30,000 in emergency savings at her local bank. It was earning like 0.1% interest. This was just recently. So I mentioned to her that, hey, if you were to move it somewhere like Ally or some other options, they're paying 3%, so you could earn an extra $900 per year. I'm curious what you think of that. Again, getting to the heart of what they think before an action is taken or before deciding that that is the right action to take, right? For this client, she ultimately decided not to move her funds. What was most important to her was that her savings was extremely accessible and that it was there to give her peace of mind. I asked her, what do you need to feel when it comes to your savings? And her answer was solid. Okay. She needed to feel it was solid, and moving it all around did not create that feeling for her. Okay. She has been a client of mine for years at this point. So she's very self-aware. And she said to me, and this is a quote, "It's not worth it to me for $900 per year. It's not worth it to me for $900 per year." That decision was hers to make based on what was most important to her, not what's important to me. Now, listen, I am going to be moving my savings all over the place. I get one of these emails. This just happened like in the last 2 weeks. I got an email, American Express, transfer and put this much money into a savings account. We'll give you a $350 bonus. And you better believe I am like jumping at that. I'm like, free money? Heck yes, I am going to do it. I'm going to be super organized about it too. I tell you what. So if it's like, you have to have it in there until this date, I have that date on my calendar. If it says you're going to have your deposit, your bonus deposit by this date, I got that date on my calendar. Like, I am super dialed in. I am like, give me some free money. I will take it. Now, I'm also a financial coach. So let's just go ahead and laugh about the fact that I did overthink this at some point. And I thought to myself, if I were to calculate the amount of time that it took me to do this compared to my hourly rate, what I would charge to like coach somebody for an hour, this might not be the most financially savvy move ever. And yet that is not why I'm doing it. I do it because it's a game and it's fun. And it's sort of like this way of like optimizing my situation or like gamifying it a little bit, right? But the decision I make is not necessarily the same as the decision the client will make. What's important to me is not the same as what's important to the client. The things I consider when making a decision are not always the same as you, and vice versa. What you as the coach think is most important when making a decision may not be the same as the client. We are not living our clients' lives. This is their life to live. It's their decision to make. Where I see this coming up the most is when coaches think all clients should make a decision based on financial outcome alone. That the financial impact of a decision is the most important, and it's not, at least not always. I know we are financial coaches, but that does not mean finances trump every conversation we have with clients. Great coaching focuses on what is most important to the client when making decisions. Another way of thinking about this is that great coaching doesn't focus on what you think or feel about a set of circumstances. You may think an expense is wasteful. You may think it's not important or that should not fit into anyone's budget. You may think debt is bad and a person should get out of it as quickly as possible. None of that matters when it comes to coaching. You will know if this is happening if you find yourself in convincing energy a lot during coaching sessions. If you feel like you have to convince clients to take action, to convince clients to follow through on something, if you have to convince them to care about a particular area of their money or their life, if you're trying to convince them to make changes in order to get a certain result, coaching is not convincing. Okay? All right. Rule number 3 explores the and scenario. Great coaching explores the and scenario. In other words, great coaching is not black and white thinking. Great coaching understands there's many right ways to take action or make progress. There isn't just one right way. And everything else is a wrong way. That's not how the world works, okay? Most every situation your client will bring you, every problem they want help solving, every decision they're facing, there is a variety of options, each with different pros and cons. Here are some examples of some black and white thinking that I would love for all of us to change and spread a different message around. If you have debt, you're in trouble. Debt is bad. Credit cards are evil. In order to be good with money, you need to know where every dollar goes. That assumes that if you don't know where every dollar goes, you're bad with money. Like that's the alternative. Doesn't make sense to me. You have to know where every dollar goes. And it's really important for us as coaches to catch when we are doing this, because I promise you, your clients will do it as well. And it does them such a disservice. And you helping them to see that is critical to their success. A client will say, should I do X or Y? Or I'm torn, I'm not sure what to do. I have to do X or Y, right? Is there a way forward that you could have both, right? Or is there another option with factors out of both, right? What other options are there that aren't X or Y, right? This is definitely one way of thinking that, like, just in general conversation, I hear people doing it all the time where they sort of see it's this or this. We definitely live in a polarizing world still till this day. It's getting worse right now, and it's very true with money, okay? So to strengthen this area of your coaching and make sure that you're not using black and white thinking, I want you to pay attention to every time you or the client says the word or, and see if you can't replace it with and. Or anytime you are talking about or you hear the client talking about sort of absolutes, something is all of something or all of nothing, it's either all good or all bad, then ask yourself if that is really true and if there isn't some sort of nuance there. What's the gray area? Try to explore the gray area of coaching. I believe that that is what true coaching is where we explore the nuance of things, okay? It's not this or this oftentimes, okay? So that is rule number 3, exploring the and scenario. Rule number 4, great financial coaching focuses on the whole person, not just their money. So I'm curious, coach. Here's a question for you. What do you think is the number one factor that determines a client's results? What do you think is the number one factor that determines a client's results? Let's think about this from a coaching perspective for a second. Your results are determined by the actions you take. And the actions you take are determined by how you feel. And those feelings come from what we're thinking, right? Are you guys tracking me here? This is from last episode. From my experience doing this work, the most important factor then, if we use that model to determine a client's results, is the client's buy-in. The client having the thought, I can do this. I want to do this. That's what I mean by buy-in. A client having the thought, I'm bought in, leads to clients feeling excited and enthusiastic about the journey ahead. Those feelings, feeling excited and enthusiastic, determine the actions they take, and then that determines their results. Our focus then should be on whatever method creates buy-in from our clients. If you have ever had a client who is not bought in, you know how challenging that can be. You feel like you're pulling them along. That's that convincing energy I talked about previously, right? So the idea is if we can get them bought in, if they can say, if they have the thought, I'm doing this, I want to do this, everything else from there, we create that ripple effect, right? I want you to imagine two different scenarios or two sort of different strategies. Strategy one looks great on paper. The client should achieve an incredible financial outcome. But in order to do that, in order for this picture that we're seeing to actually happen, the client needs to do some things that they don't love or they're dreading. They maybe don't want to do them or they're feeling some pretty serious resistance over. Okay? They're telling themselves, they're telling you that they're going to try it. They're really, do have some good intentions about, taking action on this. They really are good people. They're trying, they want to do this. They want to believe that this is going to work. But in their mind, they're not really bought in, not fully, right? Now, strategy two looks good on paper, but not quite as great as the first strategy. The end result, maybe it could cost a bit more. Maybe it will take longer, especially compared to the first outcome, right? But it's still positive overall, and the actions the client would need to take feel better to them. And by better, I mean easier, more in alignment with their values, based on what's most important to them, right? They can really see how this would work, and it feels like a plan that was made based on what's most important to them, their value system, right? So they're having the thought of like, I can do this. This is me. This is something that I can do, right? That's the thought that they're having. So I want you to play out what would happen in each of these scenarios, knowing the model. And here's what I have witnessed time and time again. The person who isn't bought in their mind will not feel as excited. And as a result, they will routinely struggle with consistency, with effort. They'll maybe forget to do something, and those things can feel really frustrating for that person. In other words, our spreadsheet looks really pretty, but if it doesn't end up happening that way, then it doesn't get the outcome that's on paper. And it's a really frustrating journey overall, right? Compare that to the person who is bought in and they are excited. They can't stop thinking about the journey that they're on. The actions they take are easier because they're more consistent in execution, right? When something goes wrong or a whammy happens, they're more financially creative in the moment because they are more bought in. As a result, all of those things lead them to trust themselves more, which gives them even greater momentum. And the initial strategy that didn't look as great, or it wasn't the best financially, could actually create a better outcome than what the first strategy did anyway, right? And here's the thing. Great financial coaching doesn't prioritize a client's financial progress over how the client feels about that progress. I'm going to say that again. Great financial coaching doesn't prioritize a client's financial progress, the numbers, right, over how the client feels about that progress. The result with the best financial outcome isn't necessarily the best outcome overall. And just because we're financial coaches doesn't mean we care or should be caring more about money than the human being sitting right in front of us. So even if strategy 2 didn't create as good of a financial outcome financially as strategy 1, the client's growth journey in that, where they're learning to trust themselves, they're excited about the journey, they're, building momentum, they're making better decisions, they're trusting themselves, I would say that all of that is worth something. And I would argue that it's worth more than some arbitrary financial outcome. That's what I mean by great financial coaching focuses on the whole person and not just the money. Okay. I want you, coach, to think back on your own financial journey. And I'm not sure what your financial journey has been. Maybe you've always been a financial badass and you've saved aggressively your whole life. You are retired at a young age and now you are loving life and you want to show others how to do that too. Maybe you used to struggle. Maybe you've paid off a whole bunch of debt and you think back and you're like, it was so much harder to be in debt than the amount of hard work that it took to actually get out of debt. And you want others to discover that too, right? Or maybe you went through a divorce and you think about how had you just known more about what to expect or what certain things meant when it came to one thing versus another, and how you maybe would have done some things differently, but you just didn't know. And so now you want to help others to make sure they know, right? Whatever your journey, chances are, just like my journey with financial coaching, early on, all of the mistakes I made, all the hard work, all the hard lessons learned, chances are we both look back on our journeys with fondness, right? Chances are you feel proud of your journey in some sense. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. You probably are not itching to get back to that time of your life anytime soon. You probably sacrificed some things. You probably had to make some really tough choices. You probably had to be really focused and diligent. But there was also something you loved about it, right? You saw the progress you were making. You could feel yourself growing and changing along that journey. You were proud of the decisions you were making, even if they were hard. Am I right? You felt empowered making those decisions. That is the feeling we are trying to capture. And when we coach the whole person and not just the money, that is possible. Another way this rule shows up is with this idea that financial coaches need to pay for themselves. This one drives me bonkers. In other words, there's this idea out there that we have to find enough money for the client in order to cover our coaching fee. And that's how we justify our fee, how we justify the work we're doing, how we justify our worth in some sense, okay? We help a client financially, sure. But we also help them emotionally, mentally, and their overall well-being, contentment, drive for life, zest for life. What value can you place on those things? What value would you place on somebody feeling deflated and hesitant and frustrated about life, complacent, whatever, and finding a zest for life because of the work we do with them? That to me is priceless. And we put way too much emphasis on the financial numbers of financial coaching, if you ask me. And rule number 5, I know some of you are really not going to like me for this one. Rule number 5 is great coaching isn't making decisions for the client. Great coaching presents all of the options to the client, helps them clearly see how with each strategy it would look and feel if they were to choose that one, helps them to see that clearly for themselves, to gain that awareness, and then empowers the client to decide for themselves. Great coaching is when the client makes the decision based on what they think and care about, and not because you, their coach, said they should do it. It takes time to make sure the client understands their circumstances and can see their financial situation clearly. It takes time to discuss all of the options available and the pros and cons of each one. It takes time to talk about what the client thinks about each of those options. But all of that is needed so that the client can make the decision for themselves. Okay? That is great financial coaching. And rule number 6, great financial coaching doesn't use shame as a motivator. I'm going to keep this one brief because I need to do an entire episode on this one rule alone in order to do it justice. But planting or encouraging shame-based thoughts when it comes to money, the less likely we are to see results from our clients. Shame is a very temporary motivator. A person can take action, but it's usually not sustainable. And that is because shame-based thoughts accumulate over time. And they are more about how a person sees themselves, and it goes beyond anything they are doing or failing to do, okay? What I mean by that is it doesn't matter if a person performs well in school or on the job, at home, or with their money. It doesn't matter if they are doing good things with their money. Shame-based thinking lingers no matter what. It leads people to automatically discount their skills and their successes. And even if you experience any of those things I just listed, shame-based thinking explains it away as being undeserving in some fashion anyway. So it's like, well, this is just because I got lucky. This isn't because I created this, right? So a client who briefly takes action based on feeling ashamed of their circumstances typically won't sustain those changes because they're doing it for a host of wrong reasons. One main reason is because they're following some rigid rule of how people should behave, or because their coach is telling them they should do it, not because they really want to, and not because they see themselves as the type of person who does those things consistently. Right? A really great book. It doesn't talk about shame specifically, but Atomic Habits by James Clear is a really amazing book that talks about sort of like becoming the person who does the thing versus just doing the thing, right? And that's really what I'm talking about when it comes to shame-based thoughts and like where, if we're using that to motivate somebody. Saying you have to suffer to get out of debt, for example, okay, creates a martyr complex, and this is dangerous. Martyrs sacrifice their own needs and wants in order to do something for someone else. I'm sharing this because it's so important that we talk about this as coaches, because it's really, really common where when a client first hires us, they want to do things to make us proud. They want to make their coach proud. And our job is to really encourage them, find ways to explore how they can feel proud of themselves, okay? Martyrs don't take action with a joyful heart, but they do so out of obligation or guilt. And this can breed anger, resentment, and a sense of powerlessness. That's why it's so important. It's why it's not sustainable, because they're going to do it for a while and then they're going to lose their power over it, right? The short-term gain is oftentimes not worth the long-term effects on the person. Brené Brown and all of her books are a wonderful resource if you want to learn more about shame and how it affects people, where it comes from, all of those types of things. Great coaching does not use shame as a motivator. Here are some questions, coach, that you can ask yourself when coaching to ensure you are aligning your coaching model, your philosophy, your style to more of a great coaching philosophy. Okay. Number one. When I don't know something, am I bringing curiosity to the process of learning and leading by example in this way? So when I don't know something, am I embarrassed to admit that, or am I bringing curiosity to that so that my client can see what it's like to not know something, that we don't have to be ashamed of that. We don't have to feel badly about that. That doesn't make us stupid or anything. It's an opportunity to learn and bring curiosity. Number two, are we on the same page as far as the circumstances or the situation? In other words, do I have a good idea of what the client understands or thinks of this before we move on? Okay, so are we on the same page as far as the circumstances? That's number one. And then after that, you want to make sure you've solidified that, right? Number two, do we have a good idea of what the client's understanding of this is, or what they think of this circumstance before I move on? Next question. Am I getting to the heart of what a client thinks and feels? Am I getting to the heart of what a client thinks and feels? Am I prioritizing how a client feels over the results I want to see them obtain? Am I prioritizing how a client feels over the results I want them to obtain? Do I know what is most important to the client when making this decision? Not what's most important to me, the coach, but do I know what is most important to the client when making this decision? And last question, is this client making this decision? Is the client making this decision based on what's most important to them or what they said was most important to them? Are they making this decision because I said so? Coaching is all about figuring out what you think of something and how that thought is going to impact how you feel and the actions you take. In order to honor our coaching philosophy as financial coaches, I like to end every episode with a question for you to ponder, reflect on, or simply consider. The purpose is to deepen your awareness or help you gain clarity on the episode topic. I'd love to hear from you, so please also share your thoughts with me on today's question. If you are watching on YouTube, just drop a comment with your answer to this question. If you're listening on any podcast player, take a screenshot of the episode and share it on your social media along with your thoughts to this question, and make sure you tag me so I can see your answers. I am at Coach Kelsa on Instagram, or you can also tag at Financial Coach Academy. So your question, Coach, is how can I grow my skills as a coach? How can I grow my skills as a coach? Next episode, I am so excited to bring to you, but I am not going to tell you the title of it just yet. You will have to wait and see what it is when the episode drops. I believe financial coaching is the best and most rewarding way to make a living. I truly love what I do. If you are ready to learn and see how to become a profitable, successful financial coach, check us out at financialcoachacademy.com, where you can learn more about our online courses, free trainings, and our events. As always, I love hearing from you, Coach. If you have any questions for the podcast, submit them at financialcoachacademy.com/podcast. And if you love this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a rating. I really appreciate it. It would mean the world to me. And I will see you during next week's episode. Bye, everyone.